Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. With Allah's signature, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer, we begin this part 2 session of the word for mosquito in the Quran and its relationship to the French word mosque, which we see as masjid. So backing it up just a little bit. The move towards economic and political control is what we're talking about, is what swayed Muslim leadership into the introduction and dissemination, that means the distribution of fanciful tales, that's a nice way of saying lies, with Muhammad's name falsely attached to those tales. The obedience and the love that Muslims had for their prophet precluded most of them, that means prevented most of them, from rejecting these sayings for fear of being disloyal to Allah and his messenger, the consequences of which would bring the punishment of hellfire. To reject the words of the prophet would be for them like rejecting Allah himself and rejecting the Quran, even though the Quran doesn't say that. The Quran says that the most excellent hadith is the Quran. It is Ahsanul Hadith. This allowed the social schemers to infiltrate the Muslim population and poison the morals and ethics by replacing it with enzymes under the symbolic term spittle. Spittle. A scientist can take just a drop of spit or saliva, if you want to be more, nice about it, and they can determine your DNA from that drop of saliva. And it is your DNA which traces your lineage. You see, today's science, they don't have to have a drop of your blood to determine your relatives and ancestors anymore. They can take a drop of spit. The stuff we pay no attention to. That stuff. And they can gather that stuff up, or you can put that under a slide, and they can tell so much about you just from your saliva. Isn't that something? Yeah. So the manipulators are adept. They're very, very good at manipulating our historical lineage. But they themselves do not give up any real information on their own true lineage. Listen to what I'm saying. They want to know all about you. Getting to know you, getting to know all about you. They want to know every single thing about Black folk. Who's your mammy? They were the experience that we have had in this part of the world called America with the manipulators of this world. They have sliced and diced our people to no end. They actually know more about us than we know about us. And that's the perfect situation for manipulation. They know our emotional nature. They know our reasoning capabilities. They know how much fear has been clocked into the average one of us, and they have certain emotional charge words that they'll use around us. Yeah, we can say nigga, but let a white boy say nigga around me and see what happens. They know those are emotional charge words. They created that. These people, these social conspirators of yesterday, they created those traps for you. And now you have innocent so-called white folk who are trying to defend us. No, don't use that word. That is a bad word to call him a nigger. And then you got some so-called black folks saying, well, the difference between being a nigger and a nigga. So they got us wrapped around their linguistic fingers with these charge words, these buzzwords that they know are going to go right into our nervous system, down the spine, throughout the blood system, shaping attitudes within your very blood cells. A cell is designed to lock something up, not to let something loose. I taught a series, if you remember, of 4 straight letters, I think it was 4 or 5, on the Jacobite scheme. Now, most of you who are not familiar with the language of Imam W.D. Muhammad, you won't know what this term means. So simply go to Google and Google the word Jacobite under my name, Instructor Benjamin Bilal, and that series of lectures on this very, very important topic related to what I'm telling you today about the mosquito. You need to listen to that, all of it, all of those hours. You need to listen to it in spurts, in increments. Very important information there. And you need to Google those lectures on YouTube in order to understand the connections between the Jacobite and those who are actually practicing Judaism as adherents of that system. So what are we saying? That in the world now are religious people who call themselves Jews and other names related to Judaism and the practice of Judaism, and they are sincerely righteous and well-meaning people on this planet. We don't have any problems with them. But in the history of that people, there are another UDATAN people, another surreptitious, on the down low, hypocritical, hypodermic type people who get beneath the skin of the social order. I hope y'all are registering what I'm saying. This is their modus operandi, their MO. They get beneath the skin where the sensitivities are. See, on top of the skin where the mosquito lands, there's no sensitivity in that top skin unless you pierce it. You have to dig down beneath the veneer of top layer skin before you can get to any of the nerves we were just talking about in the past class. That's why you can touch the hair on top of your arm or your leg or your head and there's no pain. But if you begin to tug on it, if you begin to pull at that hair, that subrooted hair is connected to nerves beneath the skin. And there's going to be an ouch waiting to happen if you start pulling on this hair, or if you take a lock of somebody's hand, I'll start pulling on the hair. You can cut it, no pain. You can curl it, no pain. But as soon as you go to grab that hair and start pulling at it, like grandmothers used to do to their children's hair when they were trying to give it a hairstyle. And grandma, you're hurting me, because she's pulling at the roots, and the roots are connected to nerves and nerve endings, you understand? So that's going to cause some pain. This is all a super sophisticated level of psychology, individual psychology and social psychology that I'm teaching you right now. Because psychology on the subliminal level is subrooted. Imam Muhammad gave the meaning of the hair as a symbol. He called it subrooted intelligence. So when they pull at the hair, they're not pulling at your intellect and what you know consciously. They're pulling at subconscious intelligence, the communication coming from your gens or your genes, intelligence, internal telling or communicating coming from the gens or the genes. This is the kind of manipulation that the Jacobites established. This is the kind of manipulation that this term UDATAN is speaking to. Subrooted activity, that which gets beneath the skin, like the mosquito's needle gets beneath your skin and causes things to rise in you. Bumps and all kinds of other painful reactions. So that's not the majority of people that we're saying are those people over there in the state of Israel or whatever. We ain't talking about all that. Some of them, or most of them, are caught up in the foolishness of it and the chosen people foolishness of what their belief system is telling them. But a lot of those so-called Jews, they starting to come out of that now. They're starting to wake up and smell the coffee. Say, like, what makes us better than the rest of humanity? Who's been telling us this for all of these thousands of years? Moses never told us we were better than sliced bread, the best thing since sliced bread. Moses never told us that. Where's that in our Torah? No, that insinuation is in the Talmud, which is their version of what we call our hadiths, the sayings of men, the sayings of scholars who were adding and taking away from the actual word of the one they called the Creator, who revealed the Torah. The Creator did not reveal the Talmud. Talmud is related to a word that means to learn. Talmud is related to the word lamed, which is their letter L, lam. Lam means to teach and learn, as you know from studying the Fiqh-based Arabic. Teach and learn. That's what develops the human intellect. So their Talmud was supposed to contain information that was designed to help our intellects evolve up to and into the direction that Allah would be most pleased with. But that's not what they did with it. So the Talmud is not a revealed text any more than the Hadiths. In fact, the Muslims, I believe, got the idea of establishing Hadiths after studying what the Jews did with the Talmud. And a lot of Muslims are going to wake up very soon and start smelling the halal beef fry about this, what I'm about to tell you right now. Amongst the ancient Persians who had Islam foisted upon them by the mostly Arab contingency of Muslims who left Mecca, left Medina, and forged their way into ancient Iran, that was at that time called Persia. They forced themselves on the people who were practicing a religion called Zoroastrianism, which was named after their ancient teacher called Zoroaster. And they were supposedly worshipers of a sun god. Don't need to get into the details of that today. Just understand that they were essentially fire worshipers, as they're called in the history books. Not because they were literally out there, kumbaya, fire, burn, baby, burn. That's not what they were doing. These are people who were a few thousand years steeped in very legitimate sciences. So they weren't no pushover, stupid, dummy people. When your enemy wants to discredit you, he says all kinds of wicked things.
All right, yeah, how you doing, bro?
And discrediting things. You see? Mikhail, somebody, your phone for some reason is open. Can you shut it, please? Thank you. All right. So that's not what that's about. Thank you, sir. Good to see you. That's not what that's about. They made a deal. Still talking about UDATAN, the Muslims of that day and time. We're talking now maybe 200 or 300 years after the passing of the Prophet, when the Muslims entered Persia for conquest. These people made a deal with the Persians after defeating them in 2 or 3 wars and skirmishes. And they said, okay, we'll accept your religion, this Islam thing, and be this Muslim thing that you keep trying to get us to be. Well, okay, we're going to have to give it up and just submit because you guys are beating the hell out of us. Our children are looking at us and wondering, what happened, Papa? these, guys, these guys just came in our land and started taking stuff over is what happened. So the Persians said, we'll accept your religion, Islam, if you allow us, the Persian teachers, the mullahs, they were called, to stay mullahs, or to become the imams, because our people are going to listen to us before they listen to you. You just beat them out of their entire country. But if we say, as their teachers, the trusted ones amongst them, yeah, we need to go ahead. This is a better deal. Let's follow this Islam thing. If we say that to them, more of them are more likely to become Muslims. This is how the so-called Jews in this world today became Jews. They were a bunch of pagan people. And they had a king who made a deal. This happens over and over again in history. They had a king who made a deal with people who wanted to foist the Judaism religion, not by that name, but to foist Judaism upon these people. And they said, well, the reason why we're coming to you, king, is that we know that once you become Jewish or a Jew, the rest of your people are going to follow suit because they love you and they're ignorant on the most part. And that was true for the Muslims also at the time, that they became the leaders and the mullahs, pardon me, the leaders and the teachers of the Iranian people, who let their teachers, their religious people, stay in place. They did not replace them with Muslims. They stayed Persian. Now, what's the important point about this, Instructor Benjamin Bilal? The important point about this is that 20% of the Persian leaders were Jews. They were Jews. They were under the influence of the Torah, but mostly the Talmud, which again is their set of hadiths that rabbis made up and established. So when these Persian mullahs began to explain Islam back to the Muslims that they conquered, they included ideas that were foreign to Al-Quran and that could be found strewn throughout the literature of the rabbis. And they had some very prominent rabbis that were teaching the majority of the Muslims who were there in Persia. And they began to pull some bait and switch moves, as I said earlier, some okey doke, wink of the eye kinds of movements amongst the Muslims. And they were able to surreptitiously establish a language and a logic that was actually foreign to the Quran itself. I'm going slow so that you will understand me totally, because I'm totally serious. You can research this information for yourself and verify it. So that's the Jacobite. He's operating, let me tell you this, based on his name. His name is an invention of Imam Wadathuddin Muhammad. There are historical people called it Jacobites. Jacobites. Imam Muhammad changed the spelling so that we wouldn't be confused with the historical Jacobites. And he changed it to Jacobite. You get it? What do mosquitoes do? I'll give you a minute. Who is Jah? Who are the cubs of Jah? The children of Jah. Who is Jah? Jah is a term that many people in that part of the world attribute to what we call the source creator. But Jah in reality has nothing to do with the one that we call Allah. Nothing to do with the one who people recognize as the source creator, who created all of this from the beginning, has perfect control over it, and will be the one to wrap it up whenever he so pleases. Jah, as Imam Muhammad broke down once, represents the forces in nature. Listen carefully. The forces operating in nature, of which there are 4 of those forces. They are called the 4 basic elements in nature. The 4 basic elements in nature are water, air, fire, land. Repeating: water, air, fire, and land. The forces that are related to the activities of these 4 basic elements is what the Bible is giving to us cryptically in secret language as Jah. I can explain it in about 5 other kinds of ways, but I'm not going to waste your time with that. It's in many of my videos. Just start scrolling and looking at the titles, and Allah will lead you to them. So where does this Jah come from? It's born out of the Hebrew word Yahweh. Let me put that word here so that you become more familiar with it. It's born out of the word Yahweh, also pronounced and spelled Yahweh. The W and the V are interchangeable. Give me just one moment. I did this backwards, didn't I? Okay. It's funny, I have a little mosquito flying around my office, so Allah has a sense of humor. Hold on. Allah truly has a sense of humor. I haven't seen a mosquito inside my house in years. And this one shows up. Maybe he's trying to get me to not say so much. Hold on. Oh man, I'm still okay. Hold on. Yahweh. What are you doing, Instructor Bilal? It's going to come together. Stand by. Yahweh. And also Yahweh. Yeah, I think I got it right now. So what is this title referring to? Again, people say, oh, that's the Lord creator of all things. Like we say Allah, they say Yahweh. And I say, no, that's not true. Not, at least not based on my research. I could be wrong. Well, you do some more research and check my research with your research. Yahweh is referring to the activities inherent in the four basic elements permeating the universe. I originally got that hint from Imam, again, W.D. Muhammad. And I did some further investigation. And every time I turned over a rock, a new meaning, a new connection was there. That's why you have to continuously study even the same subjects that you've been studying for years. You got to continue studying them. There's more there. So these forces were considered to be gods, and that's what the word El means. When you say Elohim, represents the forces in nature. 12 differentiated forces in nature is what Elohim means. Him is plural. El is God. Elo. We say Ilah. Same thing. God. Small g. Now, look for those series of lectures on the Jacobite. The cub represents the progeny or the offspring of Jah. So there's an offspring of these four forces that you should be paying attention to. The water element represents your moral nature, which wants to keep you clean and purified. The water element. It likes to flow. It likes its freedom, water. But it also likes to sit still every now and then and just rest. In fact, all of that flowing it does around all of the rocks and the creeks and the rivers and the lakes and the oceans, all of that movement in the water leads to an eventual equilibrium. When it finally reaches its destination, it rests right there. That's water. And again, that's indicative of your intellect's ability to make important choices or decisions. There's a lot of commotion when thinking about what the best thing to do is for this particular scenario, for this particular situation or circumstance, for these particular people who are pulling on me about wanting this, wanting that. What have I done for you? What do I need to do for you now? They're pulling on you. That's the water. It's called emotions in you. Emotions is a water property. But once everything is satisfied, your emotional nature is able to take a rest. We call it peace. Salam, Muslim. You get it? It's really that simple. Now, I'm going the long route to make sure that understanding is achieved. This is not an easy topic of discussion. But I believe that Allah has designed your brains out there to be able to absorb the wisdom out of what I'm telling you, but you got to listen to it more than once. Don't listen to it and chuck it and say, I'll wait for the future. But no, listen to what I'm saying now. 2 or 3 times in a row if you can, but 2 or 3 times in a week at least. Instead of looking at streams of YouTube videos, listen to Instructor Bilal's YouTube video. So we have to make that clear delineation between the people who believe that they are practicing religion from their God, from their source creator, that they call Yahweh. That's fine. You're close enough. If you're saying that Yahweh is Lord, your Lord. So why is he called Yahweh? And then on a different page, he's called Elohim. And then on a different page, he's called El Shaddai. And then on a different page, got all these different names. Okay, call them attributes then. All right. That's not the most important thing here as I'm teaching you for this moment. Those are not the important factors. Don't go to any Jewish person and say, God is not, your God is not a real God. He's not the Allah. Those are the kinds of arguments that they want us to get into. And it's not important, believe me, at all, to defend yourself with the word Allah in front of any people who call themselves religious people who don't believe in Allah. It's not important for you to defend yourself. The way Allah presents himself in the Quran, it supersedes even the word Allah. Subject for another day. Even the word Allah didn't start out as the word Allah. The word Allah started out as the word Allah. I have a whole book on it. Ask about it. I'll put it in the notes. Reconstructing Allah. Nope, pardon me. Deconstructing God, reconstructing Allah. And I give you the historical steps that they took to make snippets leading up to the introduction of the word A-L-L-A-H, which was originally H-A-L-L-A, Allah. Just like you say, hallelujah, that same word is what I'm talking about. It came out of the regions of the world where many Hebrews were in existence. That's why that word is related to the Hebrew word halle. And then they say, Luja, hallelujah, praise to Jah. See what I mean? Ha, in the ancient world of the Shemites, the Shemitic people, which consisted of the ancient Hebrews, the ancient Arabs, these were Shemites, not Semites. There's no such thing as a Semite. Semite is an invented term. I know your Jewish friends and cousins and brothers and sisters and teachers and lawyers and doctors will tell you differently. No, we are Semites and you are an anti-Semite. No, well, listen, well, you also say that the Arabs are Semites. So if someone's going to be anti-Semitic, they can't just be against Jews. If Jews are not the only Semites, there are people in Africa who are Semites by their reasoning, but it really came from the word Shem, one of the 3 sons of Noah in the Bible. Shem, so they should be known as Shemites, not Semites. Semi means something that's not all of the way what they said it was. If I say it's a semiconductor or this is, whenever I use that prefix semi, it means partly. But getting to the UDATAN is part this and part that. And speaking of part this and part that, the word Yahweh is part this and part that. It's part masculine, the Yah part or the Jah part, J and Y are interchangeable, gutturals, and the part or the ve part. That's feminine. From the same root that you get the word Eve in the Bible. Jah, masculine, Va, feminine. Part this and part that, but not the source creator, who is Ahad, uniquely one. Now let's look at what the King James Bible translation says in chapter 3, verse 9 of the book of Revelation. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet and to know that I have loved thee. So this verse is talking to those precious supporters of the life that God wanted for those people. It's speaking to that support for them, but it is saying that among them are a group of people who are surreptitiously supplanting themselves. That's what the word Jacob means. The subplanter, the one who goes beneath the surface like the hypodermic needle does to inject fluid into your veins. It has to go beneath the surface. That's what Jacob means. He plants things beneath the surface. And when that life form comes up as something other than what the farmer or the planter intended, it comes up as what Jacob intended. And then Jacob gets all of the spoils. He gets all of the herbage and oh my goodness, he walks away with everything. Pockets full. In Al-Baqarah, ayat 26, Allah says, Allah, and they use the word disdains. I already told you earlier that that's not a good thing to say about Allah, that he disdains a thing. It's like they say, Allah loves this and Allah hates that. That's another translation. That's not an accurate translation. Allah doesn't hate anything. Allah is not, no, he doesn't hate anything. That's to get you to believe that he hates some people. He loves some people. He loves the Muslims, but he hates the Jews. Quran doesn't say that, but I'm saying that's the logic that they're attempting to establish in some cases, the nefarious ones, not the good ones. No, it doesn't say that. It says that Allah loves certain things and that he does not love certain things, especially in our behaviors. So to not love a thing doesn't mean you hate it. It means you don't favor it. That's not your choice. Allah disdains not to use the similitude of things, lowest as well as highest. That's the word UDATAN that we're discussing. But Yusuf Ali is translating it as things lowest as well as highest. If he were still alive and we were able to contact him, that'd be the first question I asked him. What do you mean? I thought that word was the word in your language for mosquito, or gnat at least, smaller than a mosquito. Those who believe know that it is truth from their Lord, but those who reject faith say, what does Allah mean by this similitude? What's Allah trying to teach us by comparing apples and oranges? What is this? By it, he causes many to stray, and many he leads into the right path. But he causes not to stray, except those who forsake the path, the fasiqeen. They forsake they know the path is there, but they forsake it. Again, in Al-Baqarah, moving into the next ayat after 27, which would 26, which would be 27. Look at what Allah says. Those who, now this is coming right after what I just told you about the mosquitoes. Those who break Allah's covenant, meaning his agreement, after it has been ratified, agreed upon, and who sunder, break apart, separate, distance themselves. They separate what Allah has ordered to be joined. How wonderful is this? And they do mischief on earth. Man, these cause loss only to themselves. So they break Allah's covenant. There's no such thing as a chosen people. When you say chosen people, you're saying chosen genetics. And that ain't how this thing goes, partner. Allah does not choose your DNA. He does not choose your genetic profile. Because in your profile are going to be people who want to do right and people who want to not to do right. people who want to be righteous and people who want to be wicked and downright evil. So he can't say the black people are his chosen people. He can't say the Jews are his chosen people. He can't say the Arabs are his chosen people. His chosen people are people who choose el bir, the righteousness, the righteous disposition, the rightly guided intellect. Those are his people, no matter what skin type they come in, no matter what physical type they are born into. Everybody's got an equal right to listen to the truth and accept the truth upon its own merits. That's the purpose of El Quran, to establish that equilibrium amongst human people. So it says they break asunder. They make disjointed what Allah has ordered to be joined. What's the word for join? Yusra, from the consonants waw, sod, lam, which are also connected to the word for salah. Salah. Scholars to this day do not all agree unanimously on whether this is the actual root combination for the word salah, or whether this is something different. And they say this means to join, but they say the word salah means to connect. What's the difference? Those of you who know Arabic, you know what a wasla is. It's a joiner. Wasla in the language, wasla. So those who cause people to become disjointed, start with your average racist who doesn't like to see different groups of people from different places of the planet join together for anything significant. Now, you can have a healthy self-interest, that's not selfish, because you have ethnic concerns that are in common. You want to go to a gathering of just the people who look and talk and think and walk and speak like you do? There's nothing sinful in that. That's how humanity started out, in family groups and in tribal associations, who had things in common because they were all in the same vicinity enjoying the same kinds of things. And they got used to those things. They got used to that kind of food from their region of the land. They got used to doing this, saying that, being entertained by the other thing that they all were familiar with. And the word nas and insan are related to a root word that has to do with becoming familiar with something. That's what it means to become familiar. Allah tells you that in the Quran. He gives you the meanings for these words in the Quran. Allah did not create us as tribes or nations and tribes. You know, he did that so that we might become familiar with each other. Who is he talking about? The people that he calls right there in that same ayat. And nas. And nas. He wants you to become familiar as you branch out and start paying attention to things and people and places outside of your particular purview. Whatever you pay attention to expands. So if you start traveling the land and you start looking at those people and how they dance and how they move and groove and how they cook and how they dance, and you keep doing that over and over again, you're going to be naturally attracted to those people. It has nothing to do with what skin color they were born into, unless they're doing something that is just so diametrically opposed to your lifestyle. One of the first things to understand is that Allah can never be related to a term which, if it were true, would diminish his role as the Rabb, the involver, evolver is what I say Rabb means. I'm the first one that I know of to translate it like that. Allah is not just the evolver. So every sound in the Quran is significant and is not to be overlooked in the search for fitwa-based meanings for words. One of the first things to understand is that Allah can never be related to a term which, as I said, if it were true, would diminish his role. Attributes such as shy. How can Allah be shy? Words like ashamed. Allah is not ashamed to do so. No, you couldn't put that in the same sentence with Allah. It would diminish his role as Rabb, the evolver of al-alamin. So all of those words like hesitant and timid and all of that, they're not appropriate in referring to Allah's majesty is the point. Now there's another word in that same ayat called ba'd. And the word ba'd in ayat 26 refers to something far off. And it is consonantally connected to the word ba'udatan, a different D, not a del, but a dod. But the phonemes are the same. Something far distant, far off, something that comes after something else has been done also. It's not here right now. We have to wait on this thing. It is ba'd. And it's based on the phonemes b, ah, d. See? Bait, ein, dal, but also dod in the case of the word for mosquito. These sounds are being pronounced in both words. So how are the two words connected thematically is what we want to know. If you look at the Lane's lexicon dictionary meanings for these two words, root words, Beit Ein Dal says to become distant, remote, far off, aloof or far away, removed, retired, withdrew to a distance, alienated, estranged, wide separation, keyword here, separation, great distance, another keyword, possessing judgment and prudence. So we know this is talking about something in the intellect, clear, penetrating. We know that's dealing with the intellect and the masculine principle. Effective judgment, depth or far-reaching judgment. We know that has something to do with the intellect. Go or going a great length or far in hostility. So that's approaching the emotional nature, isn't it? Now, the second word that is related to the word for mosquito is Beit Ein Dod, which means gnats, mosquitoes. But here's the clincher: to be bitten, annoyed, or molested by gnats or mosquitoes, dividing into parts or portions which are distant or separate from each other. Key statements: something or someone, an impossible or difficult thing imposed on someone. Does that sound like only something a gnat or a mosquito would be guilty of? So they both allude to being a part of a division, a fragmentation, a distinct or separated by a distance, being separated by a distance. Both of those words. It is also connected to the idea of things that are done temporarily, such as resting in a BD, a bed, being bitten, that's temporary. The gnat or the mosquito bit you, but it's not sucking your blood for the next 3 hours. It's temporary. Or like being bad is temporary. Your child could be having the worst day of the school year, being bad, but the badness is temporary. Unless you got a demon child, that's different. You got Damien in your house, that's a different story. But most of us don't have Damien. We don't give birth to demon children. So their badness is the result of a bad day, or somebody was messing with them, bothering them, rubbing them the wrong way, as people say, right? So riding in a boat is temporary. You don't live on the boat. You ride the boat, you get out at the shore, and you go take care of your land business. Placing a bet is temporary. You go to the horse track, whatever they go to. I don't know. I ain't never been there. And you place a bet, and you either win or lose, and that's the end of that exchange. Or being up at bat as a baseball player, a softball player. You get up at bat, you get 3 strikes, or you hit the liner down first base or whatever, you hit a home run or whatever, and that's it. That is a temporary thing. All of which are temporary places or actions, all of these BD, words. Even if we exchange the phoneme B for the phoneme M, pardon me, I should have said F, it still references the idea of things temporary, such as fat. You don't have to be fat forever. I hope I won't be. I'm working on it. Food, leave that food out and see how permanent that food is, especially if it's real food. Leave it unrefrigerated. Leave it out in the open air. An apple that you just slice, just leave it there. Come back in a half an hour and see what it looks like. Hmm? So these things also allude to things that are temporary. Food. I said fat. No, this is actually not fat. This is what we used to call when I was small. We used to call that a fart, which is just a word for fart. Yeah, as disturbed as you might be if you're there when that person let off that gas. It ain't gonna last forever. The wind will catch it and send it, across the street, and people over on the other side of the street will be wondering, who did that? You're in a small room and on the elevator or something. People are looking around like it wasn't them, but it's temporary. So the root meaning for UDATAN is to bite, to cause fragmentation, to cause division, to cause harm to its victims. Now, all you got to do is take all of those attributes and apply it to the people in the world now who are exhibiting that behavior. Therein lies your UDATAN. There's your culprit in the fitrah. Boy, look at that protrusion. Ooh-wee. 6 legs and 1 stinger. The mosquito injects its liquid saliva chemical into the blood via a snout-like flexible tube. It is this saliva fluid which causes harm to its victim. The word ba'udatan indicates not an insect, but a group, hence the tanween ending. See, this is how you know the difference. If you look up this word in the Lane's lexicon or in the dictionary of Arabic language, you're not going to see the tanween ending on the end of it. It's just going to say ba'uda, which is just 1 mosquito or 1 gnat. But when you add the tanween ending, it's speaking about groups of people and their scheming dispositions. The word ba'udatan is associated several times with Bani Israel. Now we're getting to the main culprit. And you're thinking again, oh, well, then it is talking about the Jews. No, you're not understanding this term in the Quran. Bani Israel, or children of Israel, or people of Israel. These are a group of people, listen carefully, who are divided amongst themselves. Remember, it means to disassociate, to divide. They are divided first and foremost among themselves, but they actively seek to also divide others. So don't look at them as some homogeneous group of people who are all working together against you and they have no issues amongst themselves. No, first and foremost, you're going to find them to be divided amongst themselves. They will play it off as though all of them are united. All of them believe the same thing. All of them worship the same way, but that's not true. Multiple divisions among this type of people. And the Jewish people are the prototypical people who exemplify this behavior, but they're not the only ones. And they're not the ones who are singular and uniquely those who are divided and seek to divide other people from other interests. See? So they are people who are divided amongst themselves, like the Muslims are, Sunni, Shia, Ahmadi, Hanbali, Shafi'i, like the Jews, conservative Jews, Orthodox Jews, non-religious Jews, ultra-Orthodox Jews. They got their camps also, and they don't frequent each other's places, just like the Muslim Shiites don't frequent the Sunni masjids. Now, let's talk about the saliva. You see what this mosquito is doing? He's injecting his saliva beneath the surface of the skin, and he is searching for a pocket of blood, which he can then absorb or pull out of the bloodstream and take into his own body to feed his own interests. That's a scheme that Allah is speaking about. He's not speaking about that excellent creature called the mosquito. He doesn't have to send you a revelation about the mosquito. You know what to do with them. You see what I'm doing with the mosquito? If I find him, I'm going to swat him and get him out of here, because my human brain says, I don't like mosquitoes around. If you saw a skunk come into the room, would you say, oh, that's Allah's creature, just let him go ahead? No. I got to get him out of here, or he's a goner. He can't live in the same environment with me. There are animals like that all over the planet. Yeah, they're nice animals, but they can't live all over the place with every animal in its environment. That's just natural. That's fitral. Some things we like to be around, some things we abhor being in the area of. So it is the saliva fluid which causes harm to its victim. The word UDATAN indicates not an insect, as I said, but a group. That's why it has a tanween ending. And we went through the rest of this. The saliva that they inject is misleading information. We are truly in an era of information warfare. The saliva that these social conspirators, let's call them who they are, that they inject into the bloodstream, into the social arena of people like you and me. That saliva represents misleading information, or what they're calling now misinformation, disinformation, and all of the rest of those trick words. And that misinformation serves to split and divide. Remember, that's a feature of the Ba'udatan. They divide things up, split and divide who it comes into active contact with. And like I said, this is the root for racism. This is the root for sexism and chauvinism. This is the root for classism. All of those isms are based on the artificial divisions. You know, I have a whole book on that, the artificial divisions, right? All of these divisions are based on social conspirators who inject that saliva, that spittle, into their social construct. And it begins to dissolve those things that Allah intended to be joined together. He intended for humanity to be joined together. But the falsehoods that are injected into the social fabric, into the blood of society, that's what's responsible for people becoming disassociated. And the words fama fawqaha means that they, with arrogance, accept no one above themselves. They do this with arrogance. This is speaking to the Ba'udatan, that they do this with arrogance, just like Iblis is the prototype for that when he said, I'm better than he. Ana khayrun minhu. I am higher. Khayrun. I am better. I'm more, useful. I'm more beneficial in the world than that. Minhu, than him. He didn't even name him. He didn't say then Adam. He just said then him. We speak about people when we don't want to call their name. We don't want to respect them enough to even call their names. I'm better than Adam. That's not what he said. He said, I'm better than him. So fama fawqaha means that they, with arrogance, accept no one above them, especially those who Allah has actually elevated above them in status or righteousness. There are people whom Allah chooses, and He elevates their fame. He elevates their positioning in the world. not always economically, not always politically. In terms of their righteousness, these are the people that we want to go to for good advice on what it means to be righteous. And that should begin with the people in your own household. You should be choosing to go to them first and foremost about guidance, about relationships, about how to start your own business. Man, your daddy should have had that information. Your mama has that information, but she can't start a business because she's busy chasing her children with no daddy in the house. Staying in Surah 2, Ayat 63. Allah says, and remember, we took your covenant. This is speaking to Bani Israel. And remember, we took your agreement, your covenant, and we raised above you, listen to the language, we raised above you the height of Mount Sinai, saying, hold firmly to what we have given you and bring ever to remembrance what is therein. Perchance you may fear Allah. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. Perchance you may develop some taqwa during this experience. Then Allah says in Surah 4, Ayat 154, and for their covenant, the same word, فَوْقَهُمْ, for their covenant, we raised over them وَرَفَعْنَا, the towering height of Mount Sinai. And on another occasion, he said, enter the gate with humility. That means bring it down some. We raised you, now you need to bring it down some. And once again, we commanded them, transgress not in the matter of the Sabbath. And we took from them a solemn covenant, a mithaq, an agreement. These groups of people do not allow any prophet or scripture to bring them the guidance they so obviously and desperately need. They're too arrogant. These ayat are not discussing a particular group in literal history, such as the Jews per se. They, again, are merely the prototype for a much grander scheme that takes place within the core of just about everybody walking planet Earth. When they begin to be exposed to other people in the world who's got stuff that they want to gank them for. You think that's just Jews who've done that? Africans have done that. Asians, Chinese have done that. They're over in Africa now, the Chinese, buying up a lot of the land. You got Bill, what is his name, over here in many of these states in the United States, buying up all of the farmland. Bill Gates, interesting name. So it's not just no Jews. Bill Gates is not a Jew. We're Jewish. So be careful how you understand these terms is the point. So they're not discussing a particular group in history, such as the Jews, but you can study the Jewish behaviors, the Jewish ideology, the Jewish philosophy in order to get closer to the idea that is much bigger than the ethnic group called the Jews or the Israelis or whatever, but there are groups among them that typify this behavior and is outside of anything literal or physical that these people have become attached to. Among the Jews, there are people who, as the Bible verse said earlier that we read, they say they are Jews, but they are not Jews. So who are this group of people who say they're Jews, but they're not Jews? I beckon you now to study the group of people in history called the Khazarians or the Khazars, Khazarian. They exist amongst the people who ethnically refer to themselves as Jews, but all Jews are not Khazars. And all Khazars are not followers of Jewish religious protocol. So if we blanketly condemn them, we're going to be condemning some innocent and maybe some very righteous people. I was born into Judaism. I know what I'm talking about. wonderful people in the company that I kept of both the so-called black Jews and so-called white Jews. I had a person working for the Israeli consulate in New York who came to teach a Juma. Now, he didn't come to teach Juma. I taught the Juma. He came to speak to the Muslims after Juma. Habiba, no, there's certain people in this audience right now who were sitting right there. And this man he's as dark as I am or not, or darker. And I believe he was from Ethiopia or some place in Africa that allowed for that darkness of skin. But he was raised amongst the Jews in Israel as a political representative for them in New York. The highest representative of Israel in New York is this dark-skinned guy that looks like me and you when we look at it. If it wasn't for the yarmulke cap on his head, you'd say this boy was from Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. But he was so eloquent and so obviously respectful of al-Islam and the Muslims, greeted us with salam alaikum, was familiar with much of our language, much of our protocols, much of our concerns, and spoke very sensitively to our issues and spoke to us about a good 30 minutes, 45 minutes after Juma. Any people who emulate similar thinking, actions, and behaviors is what we're talking about. The covenant represents the agreement with Allah that Allah will uphold your understanding, particularly of scripture, and will do so for as long as you choose to follow the guidance. Whereas if you break the agreement, if you break the covenant, then Allah denies you the guidance and he leaves you astray. That word is dalla, as in adallin at the end of al-Fatiha. He leaves you astray. But look at that word dalla. It's consonantally connected to the English word dull. So Allah leaves those parts of you that he created to be sharp, such as your intellect, and they gradually begin to become more and more dulled down. Dalla. You become a dulling way away from the original intent under which Allah created you. When you were an infant, you were heading somewhere. Your intellect was being sparked by the things that were coming into your 5 basic senses. When you were 2 years old, when you turned a toddler and you began to learn to walk and talk and socialize, you were great as a human child. But when you became a preteen, when you became a teenager and a young adult, my goodness, what happened to you? Not you, the ones listening to me live, but all those people who will hear this on YouTube and hopefully share it with their family members, because I'm really not talking about them. If they're listening to this broadcast, they ain't that bad themselves. And Allah would send them here for this information. So I'm not talking about that kind of people. I'm talking about the people who have been experiencing these high levels of corruption in their social order, who have been, what they call that, drinking the Kool-Aid. See, it's the same thing as allowing the mosquito to get beneath your skin and inject his saliva that will dissolve your cellular structure. In essence, they're making the scripture, they are making the scripture disjointed in another way of saying that Banu Israel are primarily responsible for the disjointing of the fitrah itself via the manipulation of a language. Listen to what I'm saying. They are causing scripture. They started with the Torah. They made that disjointed by separating out of it what they came to eventually call the Babylonian and the Palestinian Talmuds, 2 books, Torah and 2 tablets, Torah and 2 books, Torah and 2 testicles. They did it to the Christian Bible also when they called the one Old Testament and they call the other one New Testament. The word testament comes from testify, and the word testify comes from testicle, because in the olden days, if you were brought into the court of law You had to testify as to your innocence. And you testified by placing your hand, mister, because there were no women being brought to court. They considered the woman to be automatically guilty of everything. So let's not waste our court time with her. She's born in sin, evil. She's the reason why we have evil. That's why her name is Eve. She's just naturally evil. Well, we gotta give her, you know. And then they brought that foolish idea into the hadiths. The woman is made from a rib. If you try to straighten her out, you'll break her, so leave her crooked. What kind of bullshit is that to put in the mouth of Muhammad the Prophet, as righteous of mind and soul as he possessed? You're going to tell the world through these bullshit hadiths that he said a woman is naturally crooked, like the rib. She's made from a rib. Where is that in the Quran that the female is made, untha is made from a rib? Allah said, min nafsin wahida, that you're both created from one essence, from one soul. That's in the Quran. But where is this about Adam was created from this, and then Eve was created from his rib as an afterthought? Stop letting these people bamboozle you out of your deen and its understanding. So they made the scripture disjointed. They even did try to do they did it to the Quran. Alif Lam Mim. What are those letters called? The disjointed letters. See this about UDATAN? He makes things distinct and he separates things. That's the meaning of this word that they're translating as mosquito. Well, instructor, aren't those letters disjointed? Aren't they call them abbreviated letters, separated letters? No, they're not supposed to be separated. They mean the major things in the fitrah. I have already established YouTube videos on that. Go to my channel, Instructor Benjamin Bilal, and Google Alif Lam Mim and see what I'm talking about. And according to even one of their hadiths, they say that Muhammad the Prophet said that Alif Lam Mim have their own distinct meanings. He said, I don't mean Alif Lam Mim as the beginning of Al-Baqarah, for instance. He said, I mean Alif has its own meaning. Lam has its own meaning. Mim has its own meaning. Those are words from in the hadiths that they attribute to Muhammad. And I can pretty much buy into that one. Boy, that's wisdom for real, for real. So no, they're not disjointed. This disjointing is a part of the disjointing of al-fitra itself, the natural patterns created by Allah in nature. And it was done through the manipulation of language, as I told you, Iblis promised to do in the word la'aqa'udanna from Qa'ada. And Qa'ada is related to the word Qawa'id, and Qawa'id in modern day Arabic grammar refers to grammar. So that's how they were going to manipulate. That's how Iblis was going to get you. He's going to catch you. He's going to be laying in the cut. I'm going to be sitting and waiting for them along your straight path. And what is this straight path that Iblis is going to be sitting and waiting along? The path of grammar, how you understand language. Do you know that in English, the word grammar and the word glamour, like, look at me, I'm glamorous. Those are the same word. Look in the dictionary. Look in the dictionary of etymology. And grammar also means magic, spell casting. That's what grammar means in English. Spell casting. And they begin every one of our children in grammar school with spelling, don't they? So we're talking about what they have served up to the public masses as terminology. The knowledge of terms. What is a term? Something that is all of the time dying, all of the time causing separation from life. That's why we call a disease that will eventually kill a person, a terminal disease. You get it? So they teach us terms in school, which means that what they're teaching us is not permanent. That's not the real meaning. I spoke of them in other videos as the difference between denotation. I know many of you remember this, and connotation. Denote is when you are denoting something based on its original presentation in the fitwa. To connote is to con that note. What is a note? A frequency. Scramble the words in note, you get tone. N-O-T-E, T-O-N-E, tone, tune. Those are frequencies. So you're conning the frequency when you connote or give a connotation to something. Oh, such wisdom from the West you're receiving today from a guy who never graduated from high school. It doesn't mean that I'm better than anybody who went to high school and graduated or went to college. Actually, I did graduate from high school, a very poor one at that in New York City, and then went on to teach in that high school for 13 straight years without a college degree. You explain it. Go to your professor and your imam and sheikh and muftis and ask them to explain that to your rabbis and bishops and cardinals, and ask them to explain how a Negro child growing up in New York City during the 60s and 70s and 80s was able to walk into a public New York City Board of Education certified high school, alternative high school as it was, that he actually went to. He graduated from there, and they asked that little Negro child to come back and teach if he needed a job. And that relationship lasted for 13 years straight. And I say, Alhamdulillah for that. Again, doesn't make me better than anybody, but that is a note that I think Allah wants you to think about. That Allah, He gives to whomever He wills, whatever He wills. That's what the Quran says. He didn't say you got to be a PhD person, master's degree person. If you are, come help us. That's a wonderful thing that you have those degrees. But you don't need them to make progress along the road of Quranic insight, is all I'm saying. Imam Muhammad didn't have a high school diploma. Lots of people. Edison, I think, who is it, Edison? No, what's the other one? The scientist with the wild hair. Somebody open up the phone and tell me what I'm talking about.
Einstein.
Yeah, E equals MC squared. Yeah. He didn't have
Yeah.
no high school degree. He went to the third grade. Albert Einstein only went to the third grade. So stop poo-pooing Elijah Muhammad, who only went to the third grade. That doesn't stop you from being a genius. Genius is in your genes. You get it? Listen to the words. Genius is in your genes. And whatever Allah allows to be extracted from your genes as potential, that's the path you're on. It doesn't depend on your teacher and preacher and all of these other people. My goodness. We're going to conclude now and open up for just a few questions. Now, let us now look into the deeper meaning for the word Israel itself. But you know, my spirit is telling me to just conclude right there so we can have a few questions. And to pick this up as a new topic, it's going to be the last topic for this particular session. I'm probably going to have a different title related to the meaning of Israel in scripture, in both the Bible and the Quran, because they're not exactly the same. Some people say Israel. Some people say Israel. Israel. Some people say Israel means ISIS. You know that one. Ra and El as three separate gods, small g. We're going to get into all of that next week. But the Quran says Israel. Yeah, Israel. And the Quran also has a surah called Isra, Al-Isra. You don't think about these things? Al-Isra. That's supposed to be the so-called night journey where the angel Jibrail, Jibrail, Jibrail took him on this night journey up into the heavens above the seven heavens and landed him in the presence of Allah himself, supposedly. And he visited certain established prophets along the way. Adam, Jesus and John, and it goes on, Aaron and then Moses and this one, Abraham, and the other one. And then the angel Jibreel couldn't go any further after that. After he went up there to the seventh heaven where Ibrahim was chilling, Jibreel pulled Muhammad's cloak. Said, hey, listen, partner, I can't go any further than the seventh. I can't go any further than that. I got to leave you here. You're on your own now. And people don't realize that what we don't realize is how long the study of the human chakra energies has been in this world. You're looking at it as it's just the ancient Indian, the Vedic, system. No, it's given the name that is related to the Sanskrit language, chakra. But I can give you different names. I can give you the name of the seven endocrine levels of power, energies, frequencies. And that would be accepted in any major medical establishment. Endocrine. 7 of them. So we have to have the courage and the intelligence in this day and time to admit that there are things that we don't know that we need to know, and that people such as myself and many, many other people, you all will eventually become those other people also that people are turning to and asking questions concerning things about, that you will be the go-to people for this new influx of information that is actually shifting gears for those of us who are studying Nunetics. It's helping us to shift gears out of the old way of thinking that was keeping us in the lower registers of these chakric energies, the lower 3 levels that the scriptures call hell, especially the first 2 at the bottom. They call it Sodom and Gomorrah. Sodom and Gomorrah. You know where sodomy takes place. Well, that's where one of those chakras is located, near the anus, the analyzer, the anal eyes that are a part of your body that sees things through peepholes. See, that's the anus, a peephole. But most people don't know what I told you earlier, that the word an is a very ancient meaning for light, L-I-G-H-T. So you're seeing light, but you're seeing it through one perspective. And when you see things through one perspective, eventually you're going to run into problems that in your life will feel like hell, because you're stuck in one direction, not understanding that there's a whole host of assistance from the Fitra, and it wants to give your intellect that advantage of knowing about it. But if you don't pay attention to it, it will never expand. Think about these things. So we'll get back to you, not the next week, not the week after that. The UOLC class is closed for the next 2 weeks. I'm glad all of you who joined us today were able to join us. You'll have to go get those replays if you want to keep in touch with the Nunetics essence of knowledge. But this is a very important presentation, and we're going to be delving into and breaking down some of the sciences related to the word Isra and Israel and Israel and Isis, Ra, El, as 3 separate and distinct powers, not in Allah's estimation, in your human estimation. Every human being possesses these 3 aspects of human power and human force. Isis, the moon, Ra, the sun, and El, which we'll explain next time we meet. So thank you for listening. We're about to open up for questions and answers. Please, if you have questions, I'd rather you, if you're on the computer, to raise that little hand that you're going to find somewhere. so that we don't run into each other. I'll see your hand on the side, and I'll open up your computer for exchange. If we don't have that exchange, then we'll just close out and let people go on about their merry Sunday business. So if you have a question from either class, feel free now to open up and ask. And if you don't, I consider myself to have done a very good job. Matter of fact, let me ask you, how many people think I did a very good job today? And did you learn something?
It was
Yes.
excellent. It was excellent. On
Most
point.
definitely.
Alhamdulillah.
That's all I want to know.
SubhanAllah, that's right.
Inshallah.
SubhanAllah. Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
All right. So kick back to me one thing that you learned out of all that I said. Just one thing.
One thing.
One thing.
Just one thing.
Anybody who's ready.
Allah has placed everything in place through his fitra, through the Quran.
Nice.
Everything.
Nice.
And the beautiful thing between the comparison of mosque to mosquito is it's so clear. It's very clear. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whenever he reveals anything, it's crystal clear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
In the word taqwa,
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning, or I've learned from your statement, how the ta in its fitra seed letter ties to the word. So I learned that the water connects or ties to something in the word taqwa. You take the ta off, it's just water, agua or aqua.
Beautiful. And that's from somebody who wasn't in the class until 3 o'clock. Amina, you're precious. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah. Taqwa is a water quality. As I said, I don't know if I said it in the first part of this class, but everything you read in the Quran is going to be related to one or more of the 4 basic elements conceptually. Remember, water represents moral thinking or ethical decision making. When you're able to distinguish things for purposes of keeping your life clean, I see what that is. It's going to muck up my life. It's going to make my life murky. It's going to make my life not I'm not going to be able to see things clearly if I accept what this guy's offering me, this drug or this scheme or this whatever he wants me to get involved with. I'm not going to accept it because it's going to interfere with the cleanliness of my moral nature, my decision-making nature.
Yes.
Everything in the Quran is going to be a part of one or more conceptual elements. That's water. So everything in the Quran is going to be giving you moral guidance and insight. Not everything. I mean, specifically those things. Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim. Guide us along the straight and upward path. That's a moral idea. Make me an upright person. That's a moral idea.
Yes, sir.
There are going to be some things related to what fire does. Fear the fire whose fuel is men and stones. Although that's an incorrect translation, you can still squeeze enough juice out of it to understand my point. Fire disintegrates things. But fire also warms the environment and gives light.
Yeah.
No, instructor, that being said about the elements, this last experience we had in, well, all these eastern southern states from Florida on up on to your neck of the woods with this flooding experience with a hurricane not long ago. Sandy Rogers, my sister, is going to for the second time. She's going to have myself and another one of her guests on her show this coming Tuesday, and I'll put the information in the chat there.
Good.
But we will be looking at ways where families and communities, neighborhoods, can prepare themselves for emergencies. And Mahir is already committed to tune in as well. So I'm sure he'll bring a lot to the table. So to
Indeed.
prepare for emergencies, what they call natural disasters, using their
Yeah.
terminology.
Yeah.
But also in terms of the kinds of things that we might anticipate coming in next month.
Oh, yeah.
Election season.
Yeah. Yeah. We better
They
be
want
paying attention.
Yeah, we may make sure we better pay attention and be prepared for anything that just may occur,
That's right.
learning from the past. So we'll be having those kind of discussions this coming Tuesday.
Yeah. Please send me a reminder
Yeah.
Tuesday
Mhm.
evening, so I
Yes.
can send out another reminder to this class
Okay.
and to the general audience of people who listen to us.
Yes.
That's going to be a very important piece of information because of what I
Mhm.
said, I think, at the tail end of the last class, and that is that we have to be mindful of how the FITRA operates. The FITRA always sends you a warning
That's right.
before striking out against you. When you see these storms that they say just developed kind of like out of nowhere, out of the Eastern Corridor comes this wind that ends up being a 5 on the scale.
Mhm.
That's not the FITRA doing that. So at some point, we're also going to discuss, maybe I'll bring it up during Sandy's broadcast, we're going to discuss weather manipulation.
Mm.
That's right. Yeah.
You remember the original movie, The Avengers, with Sean
Yeah.
Connery? Anybody see that movie?
Yes. Yes. It's
All
very,
about
very real.
weather manipulation, weather
That's right.
modification. Can anyone say HARP?
Hmm. Hmm.
Google
Okay.
the initials HAARP and see what these
Mhm.
machines that are right in front of you, looking at it, see what they
Okay.
do. See what science says they do. Science immediately after the disaster in Lahaina in Hawaii, immediately after, they were boasting on the internet about how they can create these things, these fires that
Yeah.
are much hotter than normal FITRA-based fires. Fires that melt cars, melt steel. That's unheard of in the FITRA.
Mhm.
But it happened. And they want to give those
Mhm.
people $500 per family. And they
Hmm.
lost lives. And they are still, I think, about over 300 children still missing.
Wow.
How many
Mhm.
children are missing in what's going on the planet now with all of this other foolishness happening in the United States with the
Okay.
crossing of the border and all of that? 300,000 children are missing. Nobody's alarmed.
Okay. Mhm.
So what
A
I want to
lot.
do once we get off of YouTube is start developing these same groups, these same classes. That's why I want to break it down into 5 and 6 people each, because those represent coalitions that can actually do things actively and not just talk, talk, talk. The world is there now. We need that. There are other people who are coalescing for those purposes. We got to stop with the foolishness and start involving ourselves actively in whatever we can do. I don't care if it's giving $25 to an organization to do more of what they're doing that's good for the situation. We have to become people of sacrifice now, because what we're thinking is far distant. That is going to soon become Heather. That's the point. Who else has anything to say before we wrap up? Now, if you have your phone open and you know you're in the middle of noise, close your phone or say something.
Salam alaikum, this is Habiba. With what you shared with us this afternoon, matter of fact, it kind of like popped in my brain things that I had seen that gave indications as far as the Talmud being meaning to learn. I don't know why when I hear the word Talmud, I flash back on the movie Yentl. You know, yeah. But there was a lot that I absorbed from that movie. But the thing that was really outstanding to me is when you said that a deal was made with the Persians between the passing of the prophet, may Allah bless him with paradise, and well, I have no doubt, but and up to 300 years after the prophet had left us. Yeah, and I started thinking about some of the hadiths that are shared with us, and it really it kind of like made my brain go all over the place, because what better time to grab people than, number one, right after the prophet had left us, and that's a slippery way of sneaking certain things in. For them to have made a deal,
Yes.
and having their scribes write whatever it is that they chose, and doing like the slithering that a lot of people like to think as far as the snake is concerned, thinking that it's an evil thing, but just the slithering of getting information in and taking information out, and readjusting things so that people have a mode of confusion that really can boggle the brain. It's really, I'm going to have to look into some things on this. I want to see what kind of things have been shared with us that we really had no idea. But I mean, we see it on a daily basis, probably because of what we're dealing with here. Just looking at some of the things that are taking place in society.
Yeah. Look into those things and start writing short stories.
Yeah.
On the things that you're observing that other people can benefit from.
Yeah.
See,
I do know them.
Iblis said he was going to be sitting and waiting along your straight path. Speaking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I will be sitting and waiting. I just spoke about this a minute ago. The Aq'udanna, from the word qa'ada, which is a sitting position in your ritual salat. Qa'ada. There's jalasa, and then there's qa'ada. Both of them look exactly alike for all intents and purposes. You're sitting, you got your left, foot under your anus, or your right foot. I forget. It's been a long time since I've practiced a ritual. I'm so busy practicing the routine that I don't have time anymore for the ritual. So a lot of people won't like me for saying, I don't care what you think about me. I care what Allah thinks about me. So that sitting position is to be contrasted with the first sitting position, which is called jalasa. Jalasa is related to the word majlis, which means a group of people sitting in public. And it can be any group of people. The majlis does not have to be a meeting at the masjid for sure. The majlis has to meet. You can go to a movie theater and watch John Wick the 7th or whatever, as long as you're sitting there for a temporary amount of time. That's sitting with groups of people who are paying attention to the same thing as you, like a concert. Because you could have a lot of people in one place, like the subway. They're sitting, but they're not all going to the same place or focusing on the same thing. But if you're at a concert, a basketball game, you get at a sporting event like that, or a speech, a lecture or something, or like, if you're part of the 100,000 people that just appeared at Trump's rally and that kind of, and that's what you're doing, and everybody's paying attention to the same thing, that right there is a majlis, because it's in the public and because everybody's paying attention to the same thing. Contrast that with qa'ada as a sitting position. Qa'ada as a sitting position is only when you are sitting in private. So Iblis said he's going to be sitting and waiting. Where? In your private life. We think all of the corruption is happening in the public life, when the beginnings of corruption happen when they're able to pierce through that veneer that you call your private thoughts, your private concerns, like your family. Do we not see how they are trying their best to decimate the family life in this world, especially in America?
Yeah.
That's the first thing they started aiming. They did it through television. They did it through the music. So forget about the ancient Persians who sought to corrupt the grammar of the ancient Fitra-based Arabic Arabs. Forget that. I'm telling you now about a scheme that's much worse than that. The scheme that is much worse than that is when the people sat down in this country and in places in Europe, and they schemed to manipulate grammar also, but they did it through movies and music. That's how nigger became an all right word for us to use. It happened through the hip hop and all of that stuff. Through language. Understand what I'm saying? Through language.
Yes.
If y'all don't hear anything else I'm saying today, please hear that. Do you know that they, just like they coalesced to manipulate the language of people of old, and and these, that there were a series of meetings in America amongst the highest of the elite in the music industry, and they conspired to attack the grammar, the language, the wording of rap music. And say, listen, all of you LL Cool J's and Kool Moe Dees and all of you folks, you're going to have to either get with the program or we're going to make you suffer. You won't get any more gigs unless you start talking about how your people should be more violent, should carry guns, should be the biggest bank robber, should be and the gangster rap came in. How do you think that happened? Because people in the music industry made it happen. The people at the top who just happened to mostly be the J word that we spoke about earlier. But how many of the B words that look like you and me participated? These same people getting caught up in the fitty parties, you know what I mean? Just rhyme that word with a popular person going through some stuff right now. Rhyme that with him and tell me, like, oh, well, what about Epstein? What about? I didn't grow up in Epstein's community. I grew up in your community.
Okay.
Where also children are missing and violated and will be no good for the rest of their lives, because they're not going to get the kind of attention that other folks get from the world of psychiatry and psychology. They're not going to get that help. So you wonder why our people are just, I don't even want to say cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, because this behavior I'm seeing goes way beyond that. Our people are so psychologically damaged from the infusion of these socially corrupting concepts that slid into the house surreptitiously through through Netflix, through HBO, through YouTube, where now it's nothing to see raw nakedness on regular channels in movies. Then they pull the old switcheroo, which they always do. And the movies that used to be rated G, I don't know what they rated now, but the movies that used to be rated X are now rated R. The movies that used to be rated R are the ones who are now G. And G will still show, it will still show you T's and A's in those G movies.
That's right.
And now they've slipped in the homosexual agenda into cartoons, animation.
Yeah, they push
the rainbow agenda.
That's right.
You understand?
The preschoolers, the Teletubbies.
Preschool, that's right. Where they're bringing in the fairies and all of these other characters and all, the transgenders to teach your 5-year-old that Johnny has 2 daddies. You got to be very careful in this day and time. It is intended to make or break you as a true human. So we'll be talking about that more in the future. Sorry for the rant.
I don't. This is Amina.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you about or rather make a comment, like the way that I see the qa'ada, the sitting. I think about language and how language is manipulative to, from the outer environment. So to me, I mean, I'm thinking I see the Iblis sitting in the grammar. When we think of spell casting,
yes,
I'm sorry. Let me shut my door. Yeah, when I think of spell casting, just to send those like low vibrations or low vibratory frequencies into the language. And I just thought about that could be, Iblis. But you just mentioned it being Iblis, well, the Qaada being individually or a private sitting, and the Jalsa is the collective sitting.
Yes, ma'am.
So my mind is everywhere right now. But I'm just that thought just came to
I
my
just told
mind
Habiba
about,
the same thing as advice. Write these things down.
okay,
Codify
sure
them.
will.
Write them down so they won't get lost in the ether. And these are going to be these short
Excuse me
papers.
for that.
Yeah, that's right. These are going to be the short papers that we will soon be presenting to intelligentsia. Philosophers are going to be craving what we're doing right now once you decide to pay more attention to it and give it more shape and substance. Trust me, I already see it happening. So all of you who have things to say, I want you to begin writing these things down. Everybody here should have a journal. You can get them for $1 or $2 and $3 at the dollar store or at Five Below, whatever you got around you. Everybody should have a daily journal that you make entries into from the time you wake up, if you can, and what you did that day. Even if you just say, I ate breakfast at, 8:05. I went to work. I left the house at 9 o'clock to be there for 10 o'clock, or whatever you did. Thoughts that come to you as you're driving or as you're on the bus or the train or whatever. Just write down the little thoughts that come to you, the things that you are observing. Why am I asking you to do this? Because of something that I always say, whatever you give your attention to does what?
Expands.
That's
And
right. That's right.
Expands.
That is one of the most important concepts that you will ever learn. If you give your attention to it, it's going to expand. Even if it's a problem, you're going to have a bigger, unnecessary problem because you kept thinking on it and dwelling on it and repeating it to people about who did what to you. And it's a year later, and the person you're talking about don't even remember the incident. But now your life is full of gas bubbles in the belly because you keep thinking about it. Concentrate on the things you want to come into your life. That's what the concentration is supposed to be for in the meditation. That is a part of the real salah, the true salah, not the ritual, the routine. It's designed for you to take specific things and concentrate on them so that they will expand inside of your psyche. And the things that expand will eventually come visit you. They'll be knocking on your door. You ask for more money? Oh, here I am. You ask for more true friends? Here I go. You ask for better intelligence? Did you hear what you had to say last night when you were around the family dinner table? That was profound. I've experienced this. I'm still experiencing this. I'm experiencing levels of understanding and information and other mental and intellectual things. I could never have guessed that Allah would have given me all of this. The only question I have is why? And I have the answer. Because of you. Allah says that your birth, no, pardon me. He says that this is my last point. He says your death and resurrection is as one nafs, one soul. Your death and the bringing you back into active life, he says, is as one nafs. We spoke about that word earlier. What is that saying? It's saying that when potential dies in the public, in the social life, The way Allah revives that town or that citizenry or that populace is by choosing one first, just one person to introduce a new idea. This is why Elon Tesla is at the top of his game. He was the one person that Allah chose to put in the forefront. And that one is now attracting and developing thousands, maybe millions. Michael Jackson, he went on Motown 25, and he was the first one to publicly display the moonwalk. He didn't invent it. He was just the most popular person to ever perform it in front of millions of people who never knew there was a moonwalk. What happened after that? Everybody learned the moonwalk. You got so many Michael Jackson imitators out here that it's scary. Little 5-year-olds kicking their leg up in the air, doing spins, wearing the hat, throwing the hat. Why? Because all it takes is one nafs to initiate it. And there's an attraction to those people or for those people who are paying attention to it. It gets broader and it increases more. That's what Robin does. He's the increaser, the evolver of all systems of knowledge. This is not spooky. This is fitrah. So just understand what your nafs is, what your so-called soul is. It's really part spiritual, part intellect, according to Imam W.D. Muhammad. So how do you bring more attractive information into the intellect? As I conclude, by paying attention to the human aql, the human intellect. Aql. Aql is from an ancient Arabic word that means rope. Rope, like you rope your animals with to keep them hinged or hitched to the fence while you go in and take care of business. You tie the rope around the horse's neck or whatever, and the horse can't get away because of the tie. So you can go in and take care of your business, and the horse has to just wait until you come out when you finish with your business. What does that horse represent? Your passions. So what is that saying about your passions? For Allah to use the word yaqilun, do they not reason? What does Allah say? Do they not tie down their emotions enough to hear the rational points that they're supposed to be making? Or that the other person is making. He's making rational points, but your emotions and your hatred of him because he's a Jew or he's a Muslim or he's a Christian or he's an atheist, your hatred of him for being what he is at the moment, just a snapshot. He's just a snapshot in the middle of a rolling video. You know how that video is going to end up, but you're going to condemn him to death in some cases for something that ain't that serious. But you want to be the big shot in the masjid to say he needs to die because he had sex with a girl, a 17-year-old girl that wasn't his wife, or with a 27-year-old girl or guy that wasn't his wife or husband. So that's the death penalty in the Islamic Sharia that they made up. There's no death penalty in there for that. When are we going to grow and expand along with the universe? I'm not encouraging it. I'm married with children. I don't encourage that amongst my children, but it doesn't mean that they ain't out there doing stuff without being married. I know they are. And which one of your children and grandchildren are not? Don't fool yourself. Even these annual Muslim conventions that were under the umbrella of Imam W.D. Muhammad's association, the stories I have heard about those young people when they go to that convention for those 2 or 3, 4 nights almost scared me silly to hear what those young people were doing while you were up watching Imam Muhammad and saying, Takbir. Preach, Imam. Teach, brother Imam. While you were in the arena saying that, your children and grandchildren were all sneaking off in the different people in the different ones' hotel rooms doing whatever they're not supposed to be doing. So we can't be dumb and ignorant about these things. We have to put into place guidance necessary for bringing them along as-sirat al-mustaqim. We're asking Allah for that hudan lil-muttaqin. Guide us along the straight path, the safe path, the progressive path of upliftment and evolution of this human life. Don't be satisfied with inferiority. I've heard Imam Muhammad say that many times. Don't be satisfied with inferiority. We are built for much greater than that. So with that said, I thank you all for engaging me. It's pushing 6:30 where I am, Eastern Standard Time. And the majority of you have stayed with us all of this time. We've been here since what, 1 o'clock for most of us. We had a little 1 hour break for some. The ones who were in the class didn't get any break. So let us go prepare our evening meals. Talk to our wives and spouses and husbands and children. You know, if your children are young enough, give them a kiss on the forehead. Like I still kiss, my children are all grown. 22 is the youngest, 23 is the youngest one. I still kiss them on the forehead. I still shake their hands and hug them and sit and, thigh to thigh, what's up, son? Play around with them, do a little, shadow boxing or whatever when in the room with them and all of that. And we sit and watch anime. As destructive as that is, I thought it was necessary for me to watch a whole series of anime with my youngest son because he was so engaged. I wanted to know what you found so engaging. And I found out what you found so engaging. It wasn't the violence of the anime. It was the superb storytelling because my son wants to be a scriptwriter. So am I going to say you can't be around Muslims because you like that blood and gust and bloodthirsty stuff when the anime from them Japanese, they planting stuff in your head. Yeah, they're doing all of that. But if you concentrate on it, it's going to expand enough for you to see the tricks and the trades of their craft. And that's what you need to be warning your people against. And he knows it very clearly now. He does not recommend anime, especially after our experience of watching like 20 episodes. I was just trying to get the socialization thing going with myself. I want to know where my people are, where my children are, where my sons and daughters are. I got 4 of each, and then I got another 3 from Karima's side of the family. We had 2 passes, in 1 year, Naja and Nafis. But altogether, we had 11. Isn't that something? What a mercy from Allah. We had 11. We now have 9 children still living. And life is beautiful. And I have a loving wife, supportive. She's on crutches, as you know. She'll be on crutches for maybe another couple of months. The way she twisted her ligaments in her knee and inside of her leg and all of that. But all of these things are instructing signs. And I'm a firm believer in what Joe Dispenza says, that whatever happens in your life is because you called for it. Nothing is actually bad that happens to you. They are instructing signs for you to pay attention to. So sometimes the universe, as they call it, is beckoning you to slow down. You're doing too much. And it'll send that message to your fitra, and your fitra will cause you to have a little accident with your leg or something like that. And it will slow you down enough so that, number one, you appreciate life more because of all of the things that you can't do that you took for granted when you were doing them. Like being with your family, like taking care of your personal likes or desires when you didn't have time to do it, when you were ripping and roaring, doing for everybody else except for yourself. Oh, this is a wonderful world, like Sam Cooke told us. What a wonderful world that this could be if we just pay attention. So when it comes to matters of health, when it comes to matters of wealth building, as William is about to go deep, 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 deep into the ocean of wealth building, when it comes to these matters, you have to learn how to pay proper attention. That's really all. You can get rid of unnecessary diseases by paying attention to the disease and just invoking words that will eventually eradicate disease out of your system. I'm not telling you what I haven't experienced. I'm telling you what I know and what I've experienced through the eyes of other people who have done it, including Dr. Joe Dispenza, who busted up almost every bone in his body in a motorcycle accident. And the doctors told him he will never walk again. He could die, as this is critical. You're going to have to lay on a bed on flat on your back for the rest of your life. He said, you better believe I'm not. And he started sending healing energies to those areas of the body. And a couple of years later, this man is walking around, talking, doing what we normally do. So don't tell me it doesn't work. Just say you haven't experienced it yet, but you can. I think the people in this class who are regulars are very special people. And I'm going to tell you why. We have our aches and pains, we have our sicknesses and illnesses and our setbacks and all of that, but I know that the majority of you have stuck with the Nunetics class for years now, and that's unusual. Allah is keeping you here, and it's got to be for a reason. So I say explore those reasons, but while you're here, study and study hard. So with that said, I greet you in the greetings of peace that obligate each and every one of us to keep the peace. What is that greeting?
Assalamu
alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
All right, come on.
Assalamu alaikum.
alaikum. Alaikum.
I love you. This is why I love y'all. Yeah. Listen, keep the humor in your life.
Alhamdulillah.
Remember, Muhammad said humor is what keeps you human.
That's right.
Don't be all stuck and stucco face while we're engaging in this information. Don't worry. You gotta crack a smile or crack a joke or whatever, as long as it's not vulgar. You're good to go on this channel. All right. So with that said,
thank you, Imam.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you do,
brother instructor.
Okay. We will not be meeting next Sunday, except for the regular Atlanta class. Keep that in mind.
It's my birthday.
Oh, Allah.
Birthday greeting.
Allah.
Yes, sir. I'm gonna be 17.
If you want to be in your world.
I'm calling it.
It's the new 62. 72 is the new 62.
This is true also. That is true. But let me conclude. Let's get out of this class from here. The next 2 Sundays, no class. So if you're listening through YouTube, don't expect a Sunday class to appear that night or the next day. We won't be having a class. This does 2 things. It gives me a little bit of rest, and it gives me a chance to jump wholeheartedly into the smaller groups that I'm going to be forming, and you'll know about what group you're in hopefully by this Tuesday. Those of you who still need to, do what you need to do for the payment for the class, you need to do it. Hopefully, inshallah, you can do that before Tuesday, because it's going to be a working list that I develop on Wednesday of the participants in the smaller groups. You won't make it into the smaller group unless you've taken care of your responsibility in that regard. So do what you can do, or contact me and say, yeah, I'm tight right now. Things are tight. I understand that. And I'm also probably during the week going to do a class headlined by Karima Medina Bilal regarding what someone spoke to earlier, I think it was William, as what we need to be doing right now in the midst of these emergencies. I call them fabricated emergencies, that people in government and people in secret pockets of government are instituting, such as the situation that happened in a certain part of North Carolina. I'm not buying it that this is Allah punishing us. See, that's another one of those things we put on Allah that's not on Allah, but Allah allows. Nature is neutral. You can go this way, you can go that way. But if you come into the spirit of nurture and align it with nature, there's no losing. No losing. Okay. Folks like to teach, don't they? All right. Assalamu alaikum to you all. Thank you.